So today we're going to cover how to use macros to uncrash models with circularity built into them. And this is the income statement of an articulating financial model with inputs from other financial statements incorporated into depreciation and amortization, into our interest expense and interest income line items, into our diluted average shares that we use to calculate earnings per share, and we have our pro forma information built out here from 2017 to 2021, $5.22 of earnings per share projected for 2021, and then our assumptions that we're using to build out our projected sales and projected margins over the pro forma period. So this is a completed income statement, but let's say that it's late at night, and as also, often happens when you're working late, is you make a mistake and you accidentally input a text into a part of the model that is only supposed to have numerical values, and this returns a value error, which means that Excel is looking for a number and it got text and it spits out an error. And I would do what people typically do, and that is hit Control Z, and you can see that in your interest expense and your interest income above, that there is now a value error is trapped in in the income statement beginning in interest expense and interest income. And this is happening because of circularity within your financial model. And not only is circularity not a bad thing, it's actually necessary to have articulating financial models. So why is this happening? It's happening because your interest expense and interest income is being used to calculate net income. Net income is the basis for the indirect method of calculating free cash flows for financing, which are then the cash flows that are used to fund short-term debt needs and financing of working capital needs. And those cash balances of debt and debt balances are then feed into the amount of interest expense that you pay during a period, and interest expense goes back into net income, and around we go in a loop of 100 times. We have 100 iterations set on this particular financial model, and the error is trapped until you break the cycle by doing some type of circuit breaker. So what we're actually going to do right now is remove one of these links in the chain. We're going to remove interest expense and interest income. We're going to reinsert it to Jumpstart, essentially Jumpstart the model. So we'll go over here, and I will highlight interest expense and interest income, delete, reinsert it, and you can see that we now have kind of a remade, a jump-started income statement. Now, wouldn't it be great if we had a way to automate this Jumpstart process? If in the future, maybe I hand this model off to somebody who doesn't know how to do this, or if it happens again over the course of my working in the model, and we're going to automate it using a macro. So to set up a macro, we go up to our developer tab, and I could do that mouse free by hitting Alt L, and we're going to record a macro. Basically, instead of manually importing code into Visual Basic, what we can do instead is have Excel automatically record the actions that I do to fix the problem, and then I could have this code kind of created to then reuse whenever it's necessary to do so. So I'm going to call our new macro circ breaker, and the description, it's going to be to jumpstart our model. Okay, and I am now live. I'm recording a macro, and let's just do exactly what I did last time. So we'll take our interest expense and interest income. Let's copy the formatting that we use there over to the side using paste special for formulas. Now we can go back and remove our interest expense and interest income, and there you go. The value error is would be removed. Go back, copy and paste our formulas back into the model, and we are back in business. So then to end the recording, we go back up to Developer tab, R to stop recording. So now what I think is interesting is to see this in actual Visual Basic form. This is what it looks like in code. So we have our initial range selection from L18 to at P19, the initial formulas that we're copying and pasting. We're paste specialing the formulas for those off to the side. We're clearing the contents then of the original interest expense and interest income. We're taking the formulas from outside that range, we're copying them, and then we're repasting them back into the original cell range. And that's kind of the coding language around what we just did. So now back to Excel. It's kind of a little bit of a pain in the neck to go into the Developer tab, and we have to make some additional steps. If we can speed that up by having a button installed that we can click to do the macro, that would kind of expedite things for myself and for anybody else who's using the model. So let's insert a button that when you click it would have that macro run and jumpstart the model. So if I go into our Developer tab and I go to Alt-L-I for insert, B for button, and I go up to the top of our income statement and I drop and drag a button, and I want that button to use our circuit breaker macro. Hit OK. I don't want to say some crazy button language, so instead let's do Jumpstart model. And then let's give it a try. Let's see if our macro has worked. So let me do that same problem over again. Oh, there's a problem with value error. I Control Z. There's still a problem with the value error. I hit our circuit breaker button, and the macro runs, and I am back to the correct values for our income statement. And that was just a brief tutorial on how macros could be used in a financial model to circuit break issues and errors that occur because of circularity.